This morning I saw an article that I would like to share with everyone today. This is on warnews247.gr, a Greek war news channel, and if you use Google Chrome, it'll automatically translate it for you. If you use Safari, well, apparently it won't. Now, since 2016, I mocked, ridiculed, laughed at, and scorned Christians for not accusing Donald Trump of being the Antichrist. Why? Because he brought the peace plan of the century between Israel and the Arabs. And I said to the Christians that this ought to be proof that Donald Trump is your quote-unquote Antichrist. Now, I'm going to go over something in Cyril's 15th Catechetical Lecture, something that Cyril said that you Christians have adopted as your way of fighting against the truth, to come up with your own truth. All right? So, obviously, I do not believe in the quote-unquote Antichrist doctrine of Cyril, as all Christians do. I do not. One reason is because I am not a Christian. I am a Jew. A Jew in the belief system. Now, as far as my family heritage is concerned, Jewish law would say I am not. But I do have Jewish ancestry. But this is not about Jewish ancestry. What this is about is the truth. And I'm going to call you Christians out for making up your own truth and making up your own signs. Out of place and out of time, Vladimir Zelensky, he presented a 10-point peace plan. Russia immediately rejected it. Now, I noticed that he presented this 10-point peace plan in November, so I was thinking to myself, well, how does that correspond? How does that mesh with Haggai's announcement concerning the 24th day of the 9th month? Again, the word of Jehovah came to Haggai on the 24th day of the month, and this is the 9th month, right here, the 24th day of the 9th month. That is the day that the foundation of Jehovah's temple was laid. Set that day. Make it a top day for yourself. The seed is in the barn, and the vine, and the fig tree, and the pomegranate, and the olive tree will bring forth. It does not say has not brought forth. It's to lift, to carry, to take. Will bring forth. Well, something just happened to my internet, so I gotta fix it here. I don't know what that was all about. All right. Okay, back again. It says, that day. What day? The 24th day of the 9th month. Will the blessings come? So that is the day that Israel's blessings will come. So yes, even I have to look even closer to the scripture. There's a day that blessings will come, but the day of blessings will come is also the day, or nearly the day, that Jehovah's wrath begins upon the Gentiles. But Jehovah's wrath begins upon the Gentiles by the Gentiles triggering world war. But Jehovah says in Zechariah 14 that he caused them. He brings a plague upon them, where they are fighting against each other, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, and these weapons that they use cause a vaporization of men, which we know today as nuclear weapons. So do we know the exact day when destruction comes? No. But we know that the blessing begins on the 24th day of the 9th month, coinciding with the defeat of Antiochus IV, the maker of the abomination of desolation. Now, it says he will overthrow the kingdoms and destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles, and overthrow their chariots, their Merkava tanks, and those that ride in them, and their war birds. See? Their war birds shall all come down, every one by the sword of his brother. And indeed, the Ukraine-Russia war is starting World War III. And how did this World War III begin? And if you don't believe that World War III has begun, then think about this for a minute. Russia is launching their missiles out of Belarus. Belarus has sided with Russia. And Poland has apparently 15,000 of their troops on the front lines. NATO versus the Russian bloc. All right? So we'll go back here again, and we're going to look at a few things. He has a 10-point peace plan ready to end the war in Ukraine. However, Russia rejected a specific plan which the Ukrainian president has begun to present to the leaders of a number of countries, including U.S. President Joe Biden. Reuters, in its report, reproduced by many international media such as Al Jazeera, presents Zelensky's peace plan while noting that the Ukrainian president is pressuring the leaders of other countries to hold a peace summit where its main points will be discussed. The 10 points of the peace plan. According to Reuters, Zelensky first presented his peace plan back in November at the G20 summit. Its main points are as follows. 1. Have radiation and nuclear security, with the focus of restoring security around Europe's largest nuclear power plant, Zaporizhzhia, I guess that's how you say it, in Ukraine, which is now under Russian occupation. Food security, including protecting and safeguarding Ukraine's grain exports to the world's poorest countries. 3. Energy security, with a focus on limiting the prices of Russian energy resources, as well as helping Ukraine to restore its electrical infrastructure, half of which has been damaged by Russian attacks. 4. Release all prisoners and deportees, including prisoners of war and children deported to Russia. 5. Restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity and its reaffirmation by Russia in accordance with the UN Charter, which, as Zelensky has said, is non-negotiable. Number 6, withdrawal of Russian troops and cessation of hostilities, restoration of Ukraine's state border within Russia, or with Russia. Number 7, justice including the establishment of a special court to prosecute Russia war crimes. Number 8, prevention of an ecological disaster and protection of the environment with an emphasis on demining and restoration of water treatment facilities. Number 9, preventing the escalation of the conflict and building a security architecture in the Euro-Atlantic area, including guarantees for Ukraine. Number 10, confirmation of the end of war, including a document signed by the parties involved. Now, this peace plan is not a peace plan. What it is a demand that the Russians unconditional surrender. That's what it is. Everything that you see in this peace plan is very similar to the dictations of the Allies to the Axis powers after World War II. Okay? How did the leaders respond? And this is what I noticed. Then in December, Zelensky called on the G7 leaders to support his idea of a global summit that would focus on his peace plan as a whole or on some specific points. Russia rejected Zelensky's peace proposal this month and reiterated on Tuesday that it would not hand over any territory it had seized, about a fifth of Ukraine, which it has annexed. But in December, when in December did this happen? Western support. Okay, Zelensky is on a diplomatic tour pitching his plan to leaders including Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Indian Prime Minister Modi, whose country holds the G20 presidency. Western support for Ukraine military runs into billions of dollars, led by Washington, and states have rushed to help Kiev with demining and repairing power structure. However, the response to Zelensky's peace plan and the proposed peace summit was more cautious. During the Ukrainian leaders' visit to Washington on December the 22nd, now we're getting dates. Biden said publicly that only he and Zelensky share the exact same vision for peace, and that the United States is committed to ensuring that Ukraine can defend itself in its lands. So the day that the prophet was told to mark that day, to set that day on high, was 4 days before. Okay? So this event took place during Hanukkah. Interesting, isn't it? But would Christians take notice of that? No. How about Jews? Well, it is written that the Jews' eyes will be partly darkened until the time of the Gentiles comes to the end. So chances are they won't see that either. But they will see it when this war, nuclear weapons start breaking out. The Jews will see it. Why? Because it is written in Joel 2 in the last few verses, that Jehovah is going to pour out his Ruach Kodesh upon all Israel. It says flesh, but Ezekiel 39 says all Israel. Now, I believe that the military confrontation will continue. This is according to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. I was almost said Gutierrez. That we have to wait for a moment when serious peace negotiations will be possible, UN Secretary General said late December. Interesting how this coincides with Haggai 2. Now there is Zelensky here wearing a cross on his on his left shoulder, and he is supposedly a Jew. Well, no Jew would ever do this. No, I repeat myself. No Jew would ever wear a cross on his left shoulder, his right hand, or his forehead. I have proven many times. You can go look into my in-depth library of videos and you will find that the cross is the mark of the beast. And XES or cross ES or chi, G, and stigma, they are the first three letters of the name of the beast, Jesus. All right, so he is supposedly Jewish, and his family has lost relatives during the Holocaust. No Jew will ever own a cross, wear a cross, ever. I'm not going to hear any arguments otherwise. Now I'm going to go to Cyril's Catechetical Lecture, and I pointed out that Cyril said, or from the words of Cyril came the doctrine that Christians use to make up their own truth. And that is right here in the 15th Catechetical Lecture in verse 7. But we seek our own sign of his coming. That is a mouthful. That means they are not going to look at the signs that were given in Scripture. We, churchmen, we seek a sign proper to the church. Well, here's the problem, O churchmen and Cyril. The sign of Yehoshua's coming is for Israel. Nowhere in Scripture does it say that the sign is for the church. Want to see something? I'll show you something. You seek your own sign. And that is the reason why they will not look at the sign of Luke 21 and Matthew 24. Let me show you the sign. I pointed out many signs in Joel 2 and Zechariah 14. But they're not going to look at that either. They don't want that sign because they want their own sign. And Yehoshua, in his first coming, he said, to the Jews that they seek a sign, and because they seek a sign, the only sign that they're going to get is the sign of Yonah. 3 days and 3 nights in the earth, which Christians don't even believe today. They don't even believe in the 3 days and 3 nights. You can't get 3 days and 3 nights in between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. It's not possible. Yehoshua died in the middle of the week and was raised on Shabbat. But you Christians, you seek your own signs. You see. Now, where was I going? Oh, Luke 21. And because you seek your own sign, the sign will be given to Israel and not you, Christians. And it won't be given to you because you won't even read the scripture where the signs are given. But Israel is going to see the sign, and they're going to know, but you won't, even though it's provided for you in scripture. Your version of a sign will not be given to you. Oh, what am I doing here? Luke 21. Now, you Christians, you can't even sequence and understand Luke 21 verses 20 through 24. You can't do it. You know why? Because it doesn't fit with your narrative of a sign. That's why. You, churchmen, you seek your own signs, so you're not going to accept the signs that are given to you in the scripture. Because of that, you won't get a sign. Israel will get the sign. Now, verse 20 through verse 24, up until this point, right here, is all concerning Jerusalem's and Israel's tribulation that occurred from 70 CE unto this point. And within those many, many years was a 3.5 year period of utter destruction upon Jerusalem. And these days happened. They happened. They are finished. And Jerusalem is still being trod down by the Gentiles today. If you don't believe it, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is in Jerusalem. The man at the Vatican still claims that he owns Jerusalem. The Muslims claim they own Jerusalem. And both Christian and Muslim are treading down Jerusalem with their feet to this day. Until the time of the Gentiles is finished, fulfilled, is over. To make complete, the days are filled up. It's over until their days are over. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Where are those signs located? Yol 2. Blood in the sky, blood in the earth, and Timara of smoke. Palm-like columns of smoke. Well, as I have pointed out to you in many, many videos, this entire year, that appears to be nuclear weapons. Because it is written in Zechariah 14 that this plague that Jehovah is going to bring upon the Gentiles. See, the church got nothing to do with it. It's not the church versus the Jew. It is the Gentile and the Jew. The Jew received their tribulation in those days, and when those days, the time of the Gentiles, is over, that's their domination of the world is over, then this happens to the Gentiles. There shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress, sunoke, upon the what? Upon the Gentiles. A race, a people, nation, the nations, heathen world, Gentiles. Nations as distinct from Israel. They are non-Israel. They are therefore Gentiles. Where then does the church fit in these signs? The church does not. You see, because if you churchmen would have bothered to read Romans, oh, that's right, you don't want to believe Romans 11 because you want your own narrative. You want your own signs. You want your own narrative. And because you chose to create your own signs and your own narratives, you are not going to be ready. You cannot be ready. You're not going to be ready. Then comes distress or tribulation upon the Gentiles. They will be perplexed. Why are they perplexed? They should know it's coming. And look, folks, how many years have I been on YouTube pointing out that Israel have already received their tribulation, and the next tribulation is upon the Gentiles? How many years have I been putting this information on YouTube? There is no excuse for this world. You see, the world has, all around the world, even in Myanmar, now have this technology to watch YouTube videos. And you can get closed captioning in your own language. In your own language. But if you go to my YouTube channel, and of course I'm on BitChute too, but if you go on my YouTube channel, you will notice that the amount of people who watch are in the lower single digits and lower double digits and sometimes single digits. And I told all of you, my friends, personal friends, and my relatives, I told each and every one of you the reason why I'm doing these videos. Because on Judgment Day, you're going to blame me. You're going to say that Henry knew and he didn't tell me. That's what you're going to do. My answer will be, I told the whole world. The whole world. I share this information with the whole world. It was not necessary to go to a Patreon channel. I never asked for money. I have never asked for a PayPal donation. I've never asked for a Cash App donation. In fact, if anybody were to try to give me one, I would reject it outright. You won't find any Cash App information on me. You won't find any Patreon. You won't find any PayPal or any Venmo. Any information on me, you just won't. I did it for free. Once again, because I know who are going to accuse me, and I'm ready for you. I'm ready for all of you. I've had to deal with false accusations much of my youth. And I know how this works. I'm very familiar with it. So you can't accuse me. Nope. You got nobody to blame but the man in the mirror when this begins. So you have your sign right here. But you're not watching, you're not paying attention, you're not listening. And as when I first started these videos, I said these words. This YouTube channel can be one of two things. Either my personal Bible study to share with everyone the promise of the salvation of Israel. The fact that the new covenant is for Israel. Or my YouTube channel can be a testimony against you. Each and every one of you. I want to add a little something here. And that's because I want to show you Christians what the cross means to Jews. To real Jews. Not President Zelensky. Christians understand that must understand that for the Jews, the cross is a symbol of oppression. He should not say Jesus, because there was no such a Jew named Jesus. No such thing. That came out of the Gentile world. There was a Jew named Yehoshua. Yehoshua was not a Christian. That word exists for his followers. Well, according to what Josephus said, as I remember correctly, the followers of Yehoshua were scattered to the winds, the ones in Judea and Jerusalem. Then Paul, the only apostle to the Gentiles, he actually told the Corinthians, the Galatians, and others that they were going astray even while he was still alive. He told them that if somebody came to them in his own name, they would follow him. In fact, I'll go to that scripture. I'll find it. Came in his own name. I hope I can find it. Wow. I'll go to Google. I think it's important. Oh, what am I saying? If let's see if I can find it. Wow. Might be in Galatians. I have to look it up that way. It might not be. Well, as you can see here in Galatians 3, he was already dealing with Galatians who thought that they actually had to be circumcised. I might have to, I'm looking up this way. Paul warns churches. It may have been in Corinthians. I think it was, Galatians 3. It had to do with somebody coming into his own name. Now, I have warned everyone that King James Version, by using the word God instead of Jehovah and using the word Jesus instead of Yehoshua, that is another thing that they have added. Just like the Christians want their own sign, the church wants their own sign, they want their own theos to worship. So they chose God in the Western Europe, and they chose, and in the North, and in the Latin countries, they chose Deus, and Deus is the name of is the devil. It is not this one. It's Well, that right there, this is a good one too. So remember, Paul is the only apostle to the Gentiles. He says so in Romans 11. Okay? Yet, you Christians don't believe that. But the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Jonah are filled with places where it says, go not unto the Gentiles, but go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So I will go to 2 Timothy 3 then. That's what I will do. And it's not the one I was looking for, but it's a good one. It's also known that in the last days, hard times will come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection. You can take that definition as you wish. They have affection of men towards men and women toward women, if you really want to dig deeper. False accusers. The way the Christians do to the Jews. False accusers. Impudent. Wild. Hate that which is good, or hate that which is righteous, and the world is full of this today. Betrayers, falling headlong, conceited to the point of foolishness, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of Jehovah. They have a form of piety, and that, my friends, is Christianity today. They're making war against each other, brutalizing each other with war, decade after decade. Crusade after Shoah. They have a form of piety, but denying the power thereof, from such you must turn away. For this sort are they which creep into houses, like the preachers do when the husband is gone, and lead captive silly women, and heap on sin, led away with many-colored lusts. They are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Why are they unable to come to the knowledge of the truth? It goes back to this, because they seek their own signs, and they seek their own names, and they seek their own rules and regulations, and they make it up as they go along, having an appearance of piety, but they deny where the power comes from, because they choose the name God or Deus instead of Jehovah, and they choose the name Jesus or Jesus instead of Yehoshua. Yehoshua, his mother was Jewish. He was circumcised as a Jew. He was given a Jewish name. He pretty much followed the Jewish Torah. He did follow the Jewish Torah. And he said, "For I truly tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, shall not one letter and not one stroke of a letter will pass from the Torah until all is fulfilled." Now, I want to point something out to you that Christians do not understand, and that the Jews will only understand when the time of the Gentiles comes to the end. I know that very few of you are going to believe it after I tell you this, after I show you this. But if you don't believe it, that's your fault, not mine. As I pointed out many times, this YouTube channel can be of benefit to you, an education to you, or it can be a testimony against you. You decide. Okay? He insisted at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, sure, he debated furiously with the Pharisees and Sadducees, especially about the significance of the temple, and in time this argument came to be restyled by Gentile followers as an attack upon Jews per se. It wasn't. The Gentiles should have taken notice and used that occasion to examine themselves and not fall prey to what the Jews had to suffer. But no, the Gentiles did much worse than the Jews. Originally, it was a debate within Judaism, not an attack upon the Jews from the outside. No, that's exactly right. It was not an attack of the Jews on the outside, from the outside. But you Gentiles, you took occasion to make it so. And because you did, you'll be held accountable for it. It was an internal debate at the same way that the prophets of the Hebrew Scripture, such as Jeremiah, often attacked the priests of the temple for missing the point. It's a horrible irony, and that is where I'm getting to, the irony, that Christianity bears primary responsibility for historic anti-Semitism. Few ideas can have been as poisonous as and inspired more murderousness than the idea that the Jews were, as they say, Christ killers. Of course, only the Romans had the legal authority to crucify someone. I've pointed this out many times. So that's on the Gentiles. And yet, the words that come out of the Gentiles' mouths is they say that the Jews did it. And that gave them license to go murder the Jews. And now, because you did that, Jehovah is going to give Yehoshua a license to come after you Gentiles. It was the Romans' signature way of dealing with troublemakers, but this fact became historically inconvenient for a religion that was eventually to place itself in global headquarters within Rome itself. So this wasn't the religion that Yehoshua preached. To go and murder the Jews from generation to generation to generation. So what then about this unpleasant video recently released by the evangelical organization Jews for Jesus? I have called the Jews for Jesus fakes and frauds. I've even called the Messianic Jews fakes and frauds, and I have videos that you can go look. You can go look for them. Widely dubbed as one of the most offensive religious videos ever made. Already watched by more than 1 million people, it shows Jesus carrying a cross being selected by Nazi guards for gas chambers. Just another Jew, the guard sneered, given the history of Christian anti-Semitism. Using the murder of 6 million Jews as a pretext for converting Jews to Christianity is mind-bogglingly offensive, and I absolutely agree with that. It is extremely offensive. As Jews commemorate Yom HaShoah on Sunday, The only proper Christian response to the Holocaust ought to have been one of contrition and an acknowledgement of the ways in which Christian anti-Semitism prepared its ideological ground. But the Christians, they want their own signs, they want their own idols, they want their own holy days, pagan days, that's what they want. And they want their truth. Instead, the film that The Jew Died for You uses the Holocaust for Christian propaganda, ending with a quote from the book of Isaiah that evangelical Christians have long used to explain the meaning of, they say, Jesus' death, and it was Yehoshua, not Jesus, on the cross. And it wasn't a cross, it was a stauros. Not at all. It says, but he was pierced for our transgressions. Whose transgressions? For the church? Nope. And this is the secret, folks, that the Christian has utterly rejected and that the Jews do not understand. But on the day of the time of the Gentiles coming to the end, the Jews will understand and the Christian will never understand. He was pierced for Israel's transgressions. Israel. Not the Gentiles, not the churches. Well, I can go to the words of Paul in Romans 11 to prove it, and I'll do just that. Verse 17, if some of the branches were broken off, and you being a wild olive, not a wild olive tree, but a wild olive, you were grafted in among them. So in order to become a believer as a Gentile, you have to be literally grafted in among the branches of Israel. How many branches of Israel are there? 12. And yet you Christians say that the Jew had to join the church, had to join the Gentile church. And partaking jointly. Do you see that word? Synkoinozos. In Greek means partaking jointly. Grafted in among them, with them, by them, with, to graft in with them. And partaking jointly. But you Christians, you wanted your own signs and you wanted your own narrative. So, like Cain, you went and murdered the Jews so that you could have the root all to yourself. But see, Paul warns against this. Of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Boast not against the branches, but you did so much more. You murdered the branches. You tried to burn the whole tree down. That's what you did. Because if you boast, you don't bear the root, but the root bears you, and you will say, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and you now stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. What did we just read about being high-minded? Those of the last days? What was that in 2 Timothy 3, verse 3? Huh? He warned them not to be high-minded, but he told Timothy they were going to be high-minded. That's what he did. Paul knew what the churches were going to do in the last days. And he told Timothy this. He knew it. Pay attention, folks. You better read, you better study, because this is going to come upon you so fast and so quickly if you are not fully grounded in the truth. You will be perplexed, and you will not know what to do or what to believe. He says, you now stand by faith. Do not be high-minded, but fear. The Christians had no fear. Paul knew what the Romans were going to do. He told Timothy what they were going to do. Yes, he did. For if Jehovah did not spare the natural branches at all, he also won't spare you. Look at the righteousness and severity of Jehovah on them which fell, severity, but toward you a blessing, if you continue in righteousness, uprightness. But you did not. In fact, the Gentile Christians turned away from righteousness even before Paul died. I have shown scriptures of that very fact many times. I'm sorry that I could not show you that today because I can't remember where it was, but an even better scripture that's more apropos for today, 2 Timothy 3. Otherwise, you also shall be cut off, and they will. Because it is written in Luke 21. When the Gentiles will be in distress. And then we go to Matthew 24, and we read it like this.